Lately, I've been thinking a lot about this idea. What if our drive to create isn't just a hobby or a pastime, but it's something that's wired into us as human beings? For thousands of years, we've used our hands and our imagination to make things, not just out of necessity, but for healing and comfort, beauty and joy. That creative pull, it's in our DNA. And I believe so many of us, maybe you too, are on a quiet journey to reconnect with your creativity. Maybe you've just started exploring collage and junk journals or paper arts, or maybe you're returning after some years away. Either way, I want to say this. Your interest in creating, it matters. Your time spent with paper and glue is not a waste. And the urge to make something with your hands, that's real and it's worth listening to. But I also know how easy it is to feel stuck in self-doubt or feel guilt for doing something that is just for fun. That's why I invited my dear friend, artist and mentor, Kellee Wynne, to have a conversation with me about this deeper pull to create, what it means, how we explore it, and what to do when you feel uncertain about your creative path. Kellee is an incredible artist. She paints with acrylics, teaches online and in person, and has helped many artists grow creatively and even build sustainable art-based businesses. This is how I got to know Kellee. We sat down together in my tiny art studio to talk honestly about creativity, self-permission, doubt, and what it really means to find your own creative calling. So if you ever felt the pull to create but didn't know where to start, or if you were doing enough, then this conversation is for you. So grab a project to work on, get comfortable, and let's dive in. Fussing and fidgeting, right? That's what I'm doing. Okay.
We're on.
We're on. We are ready. Okay. The first topic that I want to talk about with Kellee is our instinct to create. And this is something that I recently started to think about more and more and realized that as human beings, we are naturally inclined to want to create. And so leaning into that, I think, is super important. So one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about was that pull. And asking you, have you always felt that pull to create? Or was this something more that developed over time? Or how did that come to be?
It certainly shifted and changed a lot over the years. But I don't remember a time not creating. Whether it's, mud pies in the backyard or decorating a dollhouse or drawing or trying to draw out the next strawberry shortcake.
Oh.
Like every little bit was, what can I express myself even as a kid, and through teen years I did art and like AP art and stuff, but I grew up around artists, I lived in I guess you could say an artist community, but it was working professional artists that right. actually made money and could support their family.
Right.
But the disconnect was still there for me of not understanding how to translate that into my own life. So I've taken a journey through different pathways through the years. I find if I really think and look back though, whether it was homemaking or scrapbooking or sewing or whatever, there was always this, what can I do to express myself feeling? Like it never went away. But it was after my third child was born that I said, okay, I'm going back to art. I can't not make art anymore. But yeah, I think it was always there. But there have been times where it's kind of missing and it's my job to cultivate it. But I haven't done enough of that lately, cultivating my own creativity. So this is a fun conversation because I'm just now coming back after a long period of not making art.
Yeah, and then I think for time purposes, I mean, as adults, we work, we have jobs, we have responsibilities, so we don't have time to dedicate, obviously, to exploring our creativity. But then you get to a point, or at least I did, and it was also with me having kids, where you're just like, I'm overwhelmed, I don't feel good mentally, I need to find something that's going to help me get back to me. And so looking again for that way to do it was, for me, was art.
Yeah. And you started art a little bit later then. It wasn't something you were necessarily doing as much as a child or a young adult.
Right.
But creativity does come in a lot of different ways. Sometimes it's the way we document our life or journal, the way we take pictures. Like there's a lot of ways in which creativity comes out. Like my mom says that her garden is her painting. She's always putting together the picture, you know, through plants. So I think it's a natural born innate thing that all humans have. It's just, as was it Pablo Picasso quote, you know, we're all born artists. It's just whether or not we can stay one when we grow up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you just look at history, and from the beginning of mankind as we know it, they were finding ways to, if there was wet dirt that they can paint on walls, you know, on the cave walls, you know, whatever it is there's always been this natural curiosity to create.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, you know, one thing that I say a lot is like, think about the world that we live in. It is all, what we know of it is all from creation, whether it's architecture or art, paintings, stories that we write, you know, the documents that we put together, the music from time. It's like that's all how we know about who we are as people.
But it's also like, that's, for me, it was segmented. Like create and doing art, that's over here. My life is over here and the things that I need to do. And I think leaning into that creativity and being aware that it is so much a part of our being, it really helps to incorporate it more into your life, into your living, and to be like proud of it and happy and okay, I'm creating again. I'm doing something that is, you know, it's kind of good for us.
It's for sure, it's good for us. And I think you struck on a key point there, which is, how do we integrate it back into who we are rather than segmenting it out as separate parts of ourselves?
Yeah.
Which has been like a huge mistake I've made over the last few years. Being a business owner, running my own business, everything started becoming compartmentalized.
Yeah.
Who I was at home, as mom, as wife, as housekeeper, cook,
Yes,
whatever,
yes,
you know,
yeah.
bill payer,
Right.
versus who I am as a business owner, as a coach, as a mentor, and who I am as an artist, and who I am as a traveler, who I am as a daughter. And it's only been like I used to believe this, and then somehow I got lost along the way. Don't we all get lost along the way of compartmentalizing the different pieces of us?
Yeah.
And I would say this year, 2025, is kind of all finally coming back together to say, not one part of me needs to be cut off from the rest of me. I am one, and creativity is my natural pathway. And the more I had cut myself off from creativity, I think the sadder I felt.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah.
I mean, I knew something was missing, but in order to incorporate it back, I can't just, this is art time, this is business time. It needs to be infused together. It's the only way I can actually make a proper healthy habit of it and make it part of my soul again.
I agree. The next thing I want to ask you about is, some people feel like they need to have the education to get them to create, right? And I wanted to ask you, why do you think creating art, even if it's imperfect, is important? Even if it's unpolished, why do you think that's important?
We have this weird, idealized thought about being artists or making art. That if we see it in our mind's eye, it should come out perfect.
Right.
But if I was to go and take piano, I wouldn't expect to be playing Beethoven's Ninth by the end of the day.
Right.
And yet when we go to take classes, when we start a new practice in creativity, we don't give ourselves that time for the learning curve.
Yeah.
Or even, in all honesty, to say, I may never be good at this. But our Western culture says that we must be productive. We must make something. We must monetize everything. And I don't believe that that's true. What I really think is we just need a space to play.
Yeah.
And stop having this expectation that we're creating a product. That's where we've kind of ruined the process of creativity.
Yeah, I think that people get an idea in their head that, if I create something beautiful and finished and polished, then that will be worth the time and the effort that I put into the time that I devote to doing this. If I'm just messing around, if I'm having fun, but I'm not really doing anything or producing anything, then, some people might say, oh, that's a waste of time. I should be doing other things. So you're saying that, and I'm saying too, that the act of creating is as important, sometimes even more important, than the finished product itself, right?
I mean, I would say more important. I agree with you on that. It is the whole point.
Right.
Right? Not the product, because if we think of everything as the end piece, we are not in the present with our own creative, heart, soul led, whatever it is that we want to express ourselves. If we're always thinking about, I need something to come of this, then we've ruined the whole enjoyment and process. And yet it's something that especially women do all the time to themselves.
I know.
Right?
Yes. Yeah.
I could be cooking and cleaning. I could be taking care of this. I can finally clean out that closet. I can finish this project for work. I can whatever.
Exercise.
And then there's well, probably should
exercise. Go to the gym.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, we should definitely care for ourselves and our bodies and our health.
Yes.
But part of that care is the creative expression, whatever your medium is.
Right.
I mean, for you, it's paper, vintage, and collage. And honestly, I'm always going to put paper first, but also for me, paint and weird materials found, whatever.
Sure.
Like, I think if I'm in that space where I'm allowing myself to be an artist, then I'm always noticing, right? I'm always noticing the world. I'm noticing how pieces fit together, the texture on the moss on the rock, and like everything becomes art, and then it becomes part of the experience rather than what can I do with that and make something out of it.
Right.
And that's actually how I ended up ruining my art practice, is because I thought everything I did needed to be a means to an end.
Right.
A product to make, a course to make, a video to make, and I would say that that's probably one of the biggest shifts I'm kind of infusing into my teachings this year, is that the art comes first. Without it, we don't have a business, right? We don't have, this dream dissipates. It just kind of, and it's, everything that we were hoping for and planning for it, without the creativity, we don't have.
Right. Many people feel that they need to wait until they are good at something to make it worthwhile. And I think it's important to reframe that thought, that idea of making something worthwhile to wait until you're good enough. Because number one, that time will never come.
Right.
You will always say, I'm not. There's always imposter syndrome.
There's always,
and you have to start. That's the other thing, is to make yourself go, right? To actually do.
Well, action creates the clarity. Like, you don't know what you want to do. You don't know how to do what you do. You have to make your art to know how to make your art.
Yeah.
It's like, again, it comes to that whole, like, I gotta know what the masterpiece is going to be before I start. But it's in the imperfect process. In fact, sometimes I make stuff just to destroy it later. Yeah. And that's where the freeing comes from, because we see this, everything's this Instagram perfect, YouTube perfect. I've got it all figured out, and it always turns out into something nice. So our creativity doesn't have to be Instagrammable.
Yeah.
In fact, turn the cameras off. Don't show it to anyone. Make a mess and then destroy it. And then you're in the process of creation purely for the creation's point of view. One of my favorite quotes is, Shunryu Suzuki. We were just looking it up. And it's in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. And in the expert's mind, there are few. And the thought behind that is, as an expert, I already figure out, I know it all, and I know what it's supposed to look like. I know how it's supposed to turn out.
And I'm not going to do that. Or
I'm not going to do it, right? Because you end up with a limited mindset if you're either an expert or you're falling into imposter syndrome and expecting yourself to be an expert.
Right.
But when you allow yourself to be a beginner, what happens is everything is like this new experience. You're allowing yourself the surprise, the joy of it, the curiosity of it, and then it becomes play without expectation.
If you allow yourself to do it.
Right. I mean, that's the key. But you have to say, today when I walk into the studio space or your kitchen table, or if you just have some pens and a notebook and you're sitting on the couch or in the backyard when it's beautiful like the weather is in California, then you're just like, today I am a beginner. I am here at this moment as a beginner. What's curiosity? Where's curiosity taking me?
But you have to be brave to do that.
You do.
And it goes against our teachings of being useful and producing and so on. So it's a mental mind shift. So it's a reframe. It's a reframing. And so important, right, to recognize that you have to be proactive about allowing yourself to do this and not say, have a narrow interpretation of what you want to produce and create and allow that to take over your draw.
The comparison of what other people are doing. But if you're in your own space, no one has to know. And then you have to give yourself that permission to be brave and just say, this is just for me. So it doesn't matter how it turns out.
That's right.
It doesn't matter if anyone ever sees it. But unless you make your art, you're not going to know how to make your art.
Exactly. Do you think creating art, even if no one sees it, is a valid use of your time and your energy? A lot of people, want to create something to hang on your wall or for it to be, not necessarily useful, but
Instagrammable.
that it can be admired by others. But if you are creating art, or can you just create for yourself that nobody's ever going to see it, is that a useful use of your time?
Well, I often say, who's going to want this when I'm gone?
Right.
I'll probably die in a pile of my own art. You know what I mean? Like, there's just so much of it. And there shouldn't be this expectation that you've got to sell it, share it, give it away. In fact, the most liberating thing I've done recently, too, is just tear up a bunch of my old pieces.
Right. Or burn it.
Burn it. And I know a lot of people are probably like, but you could give it away or to charity or whatever, but I don't want that in the world anymore. I wanted it to be about the process and not about the product.
Right.
And so I'll either tear it up, sometimes I paint over, sometimes I burn it.
Sure.
But it's that freeing process to know that that what I created as I was creating was the valuable thing, not the product in the end.
Exactly. Right. And that, there is a purpose in destroying something. That's kind of the therapy itself, is getting rid of something that, maybe you did it at a difficult time in your life, or, you've moved on or something.
Or you look back and you're like, wow, that work really didn't turn out great.
Or even if you just realize that this was my playground. I just used this as a way to learn something. But now I don't need it, so I'm going to get rid of it, right? So now we're moving on to theme number 2.
Hands-on creativity.
Hands-on creativity. So a lot of people watch videos, they think about making art, but they're reluctant to get started for some of the reasons we already talked about. They have in their ideas in their mind that has to look a certain way, it has to be perfect. I need more education, more training, more videos to watch, things like that.
More supplies.
Oh my gosh. What do you think happens when you get in there and you start working and using your hands? How important is it to move beyond the thinking step and to actually pick up materials and do things and use your hands.
I admit I'm guilty of this. It's really fun to collect the photos, pin on the pin board, save on the Instagram, save the YouTube videos, the materials, the thinking about. Like you said, I've spent a lot of time thinking about and not doing.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. So what happens when we switch from thinking to doing?
It's really hard to turn off the input. But until we turn it off and start allowing whatever's happening in us to come out, we're never going to be able to tap into our true creative self.
Right.
Right? Because we're always being dictated by all the voices out there. But it's when we turn it off and we actually get moving with our hands, whatever our medium is, clay, fabric, paper, paint, in your case, collage.
Or even things like gardening.
Gardening.
Right?
Right. It's in my thought, my opinion of it is this is a meditative moment. This is how we become present with ourselves and with time, right here as we know it. We're no longer in the dreaming phase. We're no longer in the thinking phase of what we should do. Then when we first sit down to the desk and we're like, okay, I'm going to be a beginner. I'm giving myself permission. I know it's hard to get to that point, but it's also hard to tune out all those voices that leave us feeling an imposter.
Yeah.
But it feels so good to get your hands messy. It feels so good to that's the moment. I kind of feel like that's the spiritual moment for an artist.
And you just it's easy to get caught up and be in your head. Just, thinking of all the things that you want to do and the expectations that you have for yourself. And until you actually get in and start creating, and it could be just enough creativity to know that, oh, I don't really like doing this. Maybe I should create and do something else, right? It clarity, that's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
It provides clarity. And it's not just thinking and postulating. It's like, also, a good example is riding a bike. I mean, you can read how to ride a bike or
read how to swim.
Yeah. But until you actually try and do the thing,
right,
the experience is entirely different.
Right.
So
I mean, I read and watch videos all the time of travel.
Yeah.
But
those are useful.
But when I go, that's me.
Yeah.
That's grounded. That's the experiences now held in my body and not in my brain. It's held in my heart and my spirit and my soul.
Yeah.
And that's the same with creating, don't you think?
I do. And especially with travel, because if you've traveled in the past and then you watch a video of a travel video, it pulls something back out of you, like, oh, I remember that feeling. And people could do that too with art videos. If they've been creative in the past, may watch a video and it will pull something out of them again. That feeling of, I've created before, how neat to watch this person, create also.
Yeah.
But, it should also be encouraging to motivate you to get back in there yourself to create too.
I'm not trying to shame anyone for scrolling on Instagram. We all do it, but it's the point of when are we going to put it away and take time to make for ourselves.
Yeah.
Like instead of the thinking, instead of the almost planning to, instead of the I got to clean the whole house before I sit down and have permission to make something.
Yeah.
It's taking that time, because I do think it infuses into who you are, and it's an outlet that you then share with the rest of the world. It makes you feel better, and there's just kind of this I think, I wouldn't say all artists, we know some famous artists that were like mad gone crazy, cut off their ear kind of way, but the artists that I know, the more that they give themselves permission for their practice, the more they bring that to the rest of their life.
Oh, yeah. And I think that touches on the topic of art heals. When you can use art to help you to ground yourself and to find inner peace, it allows you to be able to deal with all the chaos and all the craziness that's happening around you. So that mental little bit of help, I don't know how else to say
Yeah.
it, that clarity and grounding, it just helps you be a human being that is, I don't know, what am I trying to say? It helps you deal with all the things that are happening around you.
It gives us a chance to, again, come back to the present moment and tune out the outside world. But when we're kind to ourselves, and this is where women are so guilty of making time for their art, they feel like, oh, I should be putting my family first, or I should get the chores around the house done first.
Yeah.
But giving yourself that time to be kind to yourself, to reconnect with yourself, helps you be better with other people.
Oh yeah.
When you can calm yourself, when you can express yourself through your creativity, you're going to be so much better around the people that you love.
Yeah.
I really believe that artists, humans who practice art, because we are all artists if you really think about it.
Yeah.
When we give ourselves a chance to do that, I think it's needed more now than ever with the chaos of the world. Yeah. It helps us be better people.
Right. Exactly.
Happier, at least. The more that we're happy, at least a little bit of joy to spark for the day. Right. It reverberates. It's like, the pebble in the pond. It really starts spreading.
Yeah. And I want people to realize the importance of this. Think, for example, of new parents, how they're overwhelmed with baby stuff and they're stressed out, and it's just a lot of pressure and a lot of learning and all of this. As society, we are usually pretty patient with them. Like, oh my gosh, new baby, okay, what can we do for you? How can we help you? If you have parents and grandparents, or you are the grandparent or the parent who helps, the younger generation with this. So mentally, we help people who are dealing with very stressful things, right? Using art as a way to help you calm down and to find that center of yourself again can be so helpful with that. And not for new parents that are crazy and have other things going on, but if you are in a place where you are overwhelmed and there's so much going on, being able to rely on a creative outlet really helps to bring you back to the person that you want to be, right? And as a society, we should be more open and kind of encouraging to people to do that with art, and maybe it's just that we just don't know or realize that art can do this for people. But do you see the point I'm trying to make?
Well, now you're starting to see that they're infusing it into therapy, into rehabilitative practices.
Yes.
So I think it's, as a society, we're starting to come around, even though the first thing they cut in funding for education is always the arts.
Yeah.
But that's where it's our it's hard to ask, but it's time to ask family, friends, husband, wife, whatever, to help you make that space for yourself and pick up, whether it's taking the turns with, child rearing or whatever, is like, it's the same. I would say it's kind of the same as your mental health appointment, right?
Yeah.
It's something we have to do. If we don't do it, we're not going to be our best selves.
Right. And this is a very good way to segue into the next topic that I wanted to talk to you about, which is guilt. That we feel guilty for taking the time, to devote to a creative practice. Why do you think so many people, especially women, feel like they need to earn the right to create?
I remember taking polls, as I've been an art teacher online for a long time, and asking, what's your number one struggle? And almost always it was feeling guilty to take time for myself. We kind of have it backwards sometimes in society, especially Western. I'm very curious how this might unfold for other cultures, but it's comes back to that first thing we were talking about, productivity. Is there a payoff? Is there a final product? Am I using my time wisely? I should be self-sacrificing to my family, which is also a big challenge for women. If we're not putting the family first, then we're not worthy. But we know, like, especially with the conversation we've been having, is if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not going to be very good at everything else you need to do.
Yeah. So what would you say to someone who has just retired? They've devoted a big number of years to, professional work, and now they have time to set aside to do something creative. What would you say to that person who's like, oh, but I should be useful and doing other things?
Well, hopefully the newfound freedom is exciting. And hopefully you haven't waited all the way until you're retiring or the kids have flown the nest or whatever and you finally have some open space. Yeah. But now's the time for you. I mean, really, honestly, in our better half of our life, this is when we come into more of the wholeness of who we are.
Right.
We start to know who we are.
Right.
We start to know that we've put up with way too much. Right?
Yes. Yes.
So I would say it's just time to give yourself permission to experiment.
Yeah. And lean into that curiosity.
Lean into the curiosity wherever. And, another big thing as we decide or we start figuring out what it is that we want to do or how we want to create or what our medium is, whether it's, like we said, gardening or sewing or paint, is giving yourself permission to not only play and experiment, but to know that this isn't the end all be all.
Okay.
You start something only to have it guide you into another direction. Right. Allow it to flow. Allow it to take you wherever it's going to be. We have different phases and seasons of our life, so that means we're going to have different...
So don't expect to have all the answers.
We don't have to have all the answers right now. In fact, that's exactly what I tell my kids as they're like becoming adults and they're trying to figure out what they're supposed to do next. And I'm like, you don't have to have it figured out. You don't have to have a plan. Whatever you choose now in your 20s will be different in your 30s, will be different in your 40s. And it's the same thing for us now on this, mid-age, Gen X retiring, or at least watching our kids finally, take their next step and seeing a little freedom. Now, definitely on my list of things to do will be more travel, more time with my husband. Mm-hmm. But that's also the space where I'm hoping to have more curiosity in my creativity.
Right. All right. So as I said in the beginning, we're humans. We have this need, this feeling that we want to create.
An innate desire.
Our
innate right.
Desire. What would you say to someone who feels the call to create but doesn't know what they should be creating? Should they watch more YouTube videos? Should take more classes? There's always the input, as you said. Mm-hmm. What do you do
how do you find your creative path?
Yeah.
Or some say your style, your voice, whatever. But honestly, it's not even, for a professional reason or a product. It's like, just what is it that you're creatively interested in?
Okay. But what if you have a lot of interests?
Well, the nice thing is creativity comes in all forms and you have the right to explore all of them. Mm-hmm. I know financially we can't invest in every single interest that comes along. That's where taking a class and experiencing it, finding a friend that maybe has a different interest than you and sharing it with them. But I think it's always been there. This is something that's so fun for me. The things that we've always been drawn to, who we are. There's patterns in our life. Okay. There's things that show up. And I love taking people through this process I call the golden thread. And you start seeing your favorite experiences in life, your favorite things you've ever made. Right. The things that you're pinning on your pin board, maybe for Pinterest. There's an overlap of all of it. So I would start with the thing that excites you the most at this moment. Mm-hmm. Knowing that that's just for this moment.
Right.
and you can switch and change along the way. It's okay to continue to evolve this isn't the one thing.
But a lot of people have guilt about that because they've purchased so many supplies for the thing that they've already
Well,
done.
the good thing is you can donate those supplies to those secondhand art shops where they're selling it for charity.
Creative reuse.
So there are creative reuses, but and if financially, if it's a budget, like I said, taking a class gives you experience with the materials without having to invest in everything.
Right.
But I think the answer is there. You know, if you look at it, it's like, what if I know that I've always been drawn to paper and vintage like you, but also in the messy paint and the textures and the layers. Transparency is interesting to me. Patterns are interesting. And so where does that show up? How do you play with that?
And you can also do the opposite of make a list or think about the things that you do not want to do.
Absolutely. That's a good way.
Don't like this.
Let's just cross certain things off the list, right?
Yeah. That at least that gives you a little bit of clarity of like, nope, I don't like that. I don't want to do that.
Well, you don't like wet media very much. My problem is that I'd be willing to try just about anything, right? Like mosaic,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
stained glass,
Right.
building a house. I don't know. Like it's all exciting, so I have to just know where to start.
Yeah.
And so sometimes for me, I think there's a few easy practices, like open up a magazine and start cutting out the shapes and the colors that are exciting to you and say, what is this telling me? What images are coming through? What
Themes, as you
themes?
said. Yeah.
Right? So there are some really affordable ways to get started with creativity without having to spend a lot of money.
Yeah.
Scissors and a glue stick and recycled materials.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
One set of paints. Honestly, I've taught many times 3 colors plus white, and you can make just about anything. So start small and play with it, you know? One of the things that I'm really excited about that I took 2 years now, I think, pottery class. And I was just like, wow, that was so much fun. But I'm not going to go in and invest in all the clay and the kiln and all of that.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. For me, it's containment. You know, I lived in a small apartment when I started doing art, and then plus I had little kids, so there was no way that I could have an easel and paints and all that. And that's probably one of the reasons why I gravitated to paper, is because it was flat. It's easy to store. I could put it in a bin and slide it underneath the bed or wherever the kids are going to get it. And so that was a huge factor in me choosing what I've chosen, you know, to work with art rather than the wet stuff and things like that.
I would say there's no wrong answer, though. You know, it doesn't have to be this or that. If you like both, find a way that, like, I've seen artists, creative people, where you can tell it's them no matter what the material is, whatever the medium, whatever they're creating.
The shapes,
they could create clothes and they could create a painting, and you would know, like, you know, this person is the one that expressed themselves through both these mediums. And I think that's the goal, is to just allow the time to process, to play, to experiment, to say, what if? And again, the only way you're going to know how to make your art is to make your art.
You have to get in there and jump in.
You have to get in there and do it.
Do you think that we ever fully arrive at where we, you know, plan to go? Or is the creative journey always evolving?
Well, obviously, I'm going to say it's always evolving, because it would be so sad to arrive. I think it's great to learn and master certain skills, but I think it's Pareto's principle. Is that the one? Okay, we'll edit it out if I'm wrong. But there's this concept that when you're really new at something, you think that, oh, I've discovered it and I understand it. But the more you learn about it, you get into this dip where you just really are like, oh, wow, there's just so much to know and knowledge. Eventually you come to the other side where you have enough now that you begin to master or understand or become proficient, I think is the word that I would use, at the art or the craft that you're making. but there's still always this time where you know that you're never going to end that journey of learning. Are there masters in this world? We have masters. They're Pulitzer Prize winners. They're Grammy winners. They're yes, there are people who come to that point where they've really learned. But if you learn, if you listen to any famous artist, musician, writer, they will tell you the journey is always ongoing.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's still something surprising them.
Right.
I think life would be so sad if we weren't surprised by our own curiosity.
Yeah.
I think that's the goal. Yep. Yes, there is a goal of getting to know what you do better so that it comes with a little more ease. But as far as, figuring it all out, I don't think we ever figure it all out.
Okay, last question. What has art given you besides the finished product?
Well, it gave me a career.
Okay.
That is exciting, but that's not the goal of everyone. Most people, I think the goal should just be that creative outlet. I think it's also given me a connection with time.
Yeah.
A connection with time, seeing my journey through art, seeing what I've learned, connecting with my family. My father was an artist. My great uncle was an artist. I would say even my siblings and my mom. And we've all got this massive, wild, creative streak. So there's this connection with the people I love, with time, looking through my experiences over time. I don't know. I think it's a nice way to paint the story of your life,
Yeah.
So art is a lot more than just the product. It is...
Yeah.
It becomes an identity.
Yeah. For me, I think what it has given me is I think I understand myself better.
Yeah.
Which is not something that I ever thought that I'd be able to say, really. And I think that's kind of important. So I think there's more of an inward introspection.
Yeah.
Introspectiveness, I don't know the correct word for that has happened from me doing art, creating art, that I would not have otherwise.
More connection to your own heart and soul.
Yeah, yeah. And at least knowing what you like and what you don't like. That's
right.
Super clear.
A little outlet amongst the busyness of our life.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a gift. I think it's our divine right to be creative. And I really encourage everyone who's listening and going, but what about me? Yes, you. You too.
Okay, so what would be an example of a project or something that you could experiment with to just kind of see and play with things to get going, to figure out?
Right. A couple of easy ideas that we have for exploring without a big commitment.
Yes.
Right? So something I'm pretty well known for, I didn't invent it, but I guess I got the ball rolling for everyone, is grid journaling.
Yes, and I learned a lot about grid journaling from Kellee.
Maybe I'll have to have the grid journaling course back up.
It's useful. Yeah.
So the concept behind it is really small ways of exploring different techniques and colors and materials. And it's fun because it teaches you color theory and composition and design, because you're looking at these pieces as they all come together. In fact, what I usually do is I do the quick fix, which is trace like a Post-it note to create a bunch of squares on my page in my art journal.
That's right.
And any art journal will work. And then I collect a limited amount of supplies. So if I want to work with paint, or if I want to work with paper, stencils, textures, whatever, I just limit it. Kind of like you do with the glue books. You have a theme, or you give some prompts. Pick a couple of things, whatever. Sometimes it's really fun to just, like I said, pull out from a magazine, or whatever scraps are left on your table from something else you were working on.
Right. But limited.
But it's easier if it's limited, so you just grab a few things that are sparking interest to you right now, and you begin to play with the shapes and the colors. And this is low commitment because it's in a journal. You're playing with the ideas. You're not looking for a masterpiece. You're not looking for a finished product.
Right.
Right. That's one of the nice things about art journaling or collage and small bits like that. The whole point is just to play and experience it.
Right.
So I love doing the grid journaling for that because from there it can bounce new ideas or new discoveries that I didn't know. I'll discover compositions that I like find intriguing and
color combinations,
right?
And different, like a piece of fabric along with
right
pattern paper along with a piece of vintage music or
right, exactly, a supply that I didn't ever think to use in a certain way.
Right.
And so I highly recommend grid journaling.
Yeah.
And I know you have your favorite suggestion.
What I like to do is work with glue books, which is basically an art journal, right? Where you just have pages and they could be random pages that you just put together and then hole punch and use a ring or a piece of yarn to tie them all together. And then on those pages, you experiment with putting different kinds of papers on there and looking at the combinations again and maybe the different colors or the shades of the same color. You just experiment with what makes you happy and makes you feel like you can accomplish something small, like a grid journal page or a spread. You just have those 6 squares or however many squares are in a journal. When you finish those, you feel good about yourself. Like it's an accomplishment. Like, wow, I finished this. And same thing with a glue book. If you're just working on a single page or in a single spread, then you're done. And you close it up and you put it away and you have that feeling that you've done something, right?
Yeah, I mean, and it kind of satisfies that itch of I need to have something finished to make it worthwhile.
Yeah.
It's finished for yourself. It's the experience,
Right.
and you can say this page is done.
Yeah.
And I understand that need, right? It doesn't have to be a finished product to show to anyone or to hang on the wall, but in the process of grid journaling or glue books, you have something that you can say, I did that.
That's right. And you can look back at them, look over again and remember, oh yes, I did like that combination. I did like the process. I enjoyed putting that together. Maybe I'd enjoy doing it again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those are a couple of really simple
That's right.
ways to get going.
Yeah.
If anything else, I say just scribble. Honestly, see how your hand makes the movement as it, whichever material you're using, whether it's ink or it's pencil or whatever.
Yeah.
See what happens when your hand moves without having to sketch something or draw a perfect line.
Right. And don't put the pressure on yourself of buying a beautiful, perfect journal.
Right.
Brand new, clean pages. Oh my gosh. So you just have this feeling inside of you like, ugh, I'm not worthy to work on these pages. So instead, like, take an old calendar, like those calendars that you had on your desk that you can pull off the month or whatever, and then you have this sheet that you just throw away afterwards.
You know what
you
I've
could
done?
save those and just turn them over.
You know what I've done that is so much fun to like have that experience with knowing for sure it's not a finished product.
Right.
Junk mail that comes, beautiful furniture catalogs or clothing catalogs.
Yeah.
Take your paint or your markers or your whatever
Yeah.
and start playing in those. It doesn't even have to be like you're following the lines, but you're like reacting to the shapes and colors that are there.
Yeah.
And you're just like flicking paint across the page, and it's very freeing without having to worry about what it is at all. And so that's giving you that experience of, I know I like it when I use small marks. I know big marks, the brush stroke,
Right.
the
You're
pattern.
learning.
You're
Just
giving
learning.
yourself, and it doesn't matter how long you've been making art. I still do this now with a lifetime of making art because I need that experience to reinvigorate just that, the heart, mind to hand.
Yeah.
To get the hands moving again, right? That's the whole point.
Yep. Okay, those are all of our questions.
Yay, thank you so much, Marguerite, for having me on your YouTube
Yay.
channel. She says, stop watching so much YouTube and get making, but you should watch this YouTube channel.
Thank you. So So listening to this, did you realize something, relate to something, get inspired by something? Let me know in the comments. And let me know if you like this kind of content. It will help me decide for making more of it in the future. So Kellee has a grid journal mini course free here on YouTube. This is the first video in the series, so go check it out.